Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Here with Divi Shakti Didi, the one and only.
Dandavad, everyone. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev. And the lotus feet of Shri Shri Guru Gaurchandra Girirari too, in her Salt Lake City ashram. And so today's our Q&A. And I did have a question come in. Very good question. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is mentioned that, wait, who was it again? It's mentioned about there being 3.5 devotees, 3.5 principal devotees. I don't know if anyone remembers here. Let me look it up. I should have prepared better for this. Who are the 3.5 devotees in Jagannath Puri? This is mentioned by Srila Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Let's see. Yeah, so in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is mentioned in one place that there are 3.5 most confidential devotees in Jagannath Puri, and they are Swarup Damodar Goswami, Ramanand Rai, Shiki Mahiti, and then Madhavi Devi is the 4th person mentioned, who is the sister of Shiki Mahiti, and she's counted as half, right? So there are a few things around this. One thing is that, one may say, well, how can you say they're like the 3 most confidential devotees in Puri, or 3.5? Because there were so many great devotees and also many devotees in Bengal. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he made some comment that this statement was made as propaganda for the Puri devotees. Sometimes there are these kinds of extreme expressions, like, you are my absolute best friend in the whole world. It may not be like literally true in a very exact sense, but subjectively it has some level of truth to it, right? Sometimes we will make these kinds of extreme statements to make a point, right? To make a point, make some emphasis, right? So there is an element of that. But then the question that came was specifically, why is Madhavi Devi, the woman, why is she counted as half, right? It sounds a little offensive, right? Especially to our modern ear. How can you say that the woman doesn't count as a whole person? Why is she only half a person and the men are counted as a whole person? And I heard from Acharya Maharaj. He shared this once, that he was in Russia once and somebody asked him this question. And the inspiration that came to him was that, not that this statement is made, not because she is less important, but simply because she could not directly interact with Mahaprabhu because of the social conventions of the time, right? At that time, sannyasis were expected to follow very strict standards. And so even we hear a sannyasi would not, it would be considered inappropriate for a sannyasi to speak the name of a woman, right? The idea being that they are meant to be in the renounced order of life, and they should not have any contact with members of the opposite sex at all, for their own protection, in their life of celibacy. So that was the convention of the time for sannyasis. And so, what to speak of directly interacting with them, speaking with them, that was against the social norms at the time. And so for that reason, this was the conclusion that Sripada Charimarsh came to, that she's counted as half a person, because although she had substantially a deep connection with Mahaprabhu, she was a great devotee of Mahaprabhu. Because of the social structure of the time, she could not have direct exchange, direct interaction with him. And so for that reason, she's counted as half. And so Charimarsh, he gave that answer. And then later, when he went back, he returned from Russia back to India, then he checked that with our Gurudev, Srila Govinda Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj, and our Gurudev confirmed that, yes, this is correct. It's not that she's being counted as less, but it's simply that half is reflecting the fact that she was unable to directly interact with Mahaprabhu. And there were many other lady, noble lady devotees also, who had unique and special relationships with Mahaprabhu, but they could not directly interact. Another person, another Vaishnavi who comes to mind is Damayanti, right? She's also described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. She was the sister of Raghava Pandit, right? Raghava Pandit was a prominent devotee and associate of Mahaprabhu, as well as Nityananda Prabhu. He lived in, I suppose, what would now be like the outskirts of the Kolkata area. He was involved in the Panihati festival, right, that Nityananda Prabhu famously put on. And then so his sister was Damayanti, and there are these elaborate descriptions in Chaitanya Charitamrita of how she would prepare many things for Mahaprabhu, and then Raghava Pandit would carry them to Puri, right? So they're in Bengal, and Damayanti used to prepare all of these, very special things, and particularly things that would keep, right? Because it would be a long journey. It would be a journey of a few weeks, and and it's also India, it could be hot. And so, things like, pickles and chutneys and different things like this. She would, all kinds of things, and I cannot remember now, unfortunately, but there's an elaborate description in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and she would make all these things and then pack them very nicely, and they would be wrapped very carefully and carried in bags. And Raga Veda Jolly, that phrase is coming to my mind. There was some term that they used to refer to these bags that Raghava Pandit used to carry from Bengal to Puri. So she would prepare, it was like a huge labor of love that she would prepare all these elaborate things, and then her brother would carry them and he would present them. So she put all of her effort into preparing them, but she could not directly go and offer them to Mahaprabhu. And so her brother was the go-between. So that is Damayanti. And there are many others, of course, prominent, respected ladies who had deep devotion for Mahaprabhu, were honored and loved by Mahaprabhu and the Vaishnavas. But because of the social conventions of the time, they could not directly interact. And I had some experience of this once, because this type of tradition is still followed in some, amongst some communities. I had this experience once when I visited one Hindu temple in London. One friend of our temple wanted to bring me there, and I went with, I believe it was Shachi Devi. We went with this one Hindu gentleman. We visited this temple, and he had this friend of ours. He had been childhood friends with the sannyasi at this temple and in London. And so they knew each other very well. They were old friends. Welcome, Robert. And so, they knew I think from South Africa, they'd both been to a school together in South Africa. And so they were old friends. And so our friend wanted to bring us to meet the sannyasi who was his old childhood friend. But they followed these rules to this day, very strictly, that their sannyasis don't speak with women. And so what we did was, myself and Shachi Didi, we sat on one side of the room, and then the sannyasi sat on another side of the room. And then our friend, he was like in the middle, and this sannyasi would not look at us, but he was asking us questions and communicating to us through our friends. No, you remember, yeah. So, in the time of Mahaprabhu, it was something like this, that there could not be this type of direct interaction. But it didn't mean that the affection, the relationship was not there. But it was not prominent, right? Not direct, indirect, you could say, indirectly expressed. So, so that is um, the answer to that question about Madhavi Devi, as I've heard and understood. Yeah. Good to see you, Robert. Do you have any topic you'd like to bring up today for our meeting? Yeah. Okay.
Not really, no. I just came for the association to see what you're talking about, really.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. Well, does anyone else want to bring up any question or topic suggestion for today? Mhm. What about Satya Govinda?
No, thank you. I don't have a question.
Okay. Divi Shakti, did you say you have a topic? No? Okay. Everyone's quiet today. Let's see on our Vaishnava calendar. I'm sure I've missed something very important.
Oh, yeah, I think it's like pretty simple.
Yeah. Next week is Guru Purnima and the beginning of Chaturmasya. So yesterday was the disappearance of Sripada Jita Krishna Brahmachari. Yeah, we heard Gurudev talking about him. Very dear to Gurudev and Sridhar Maharaj.
Is that the one who would come up and give Nicholas?
No, 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 that was someone else. Yeah, that was someone else. This Ajita Krishna Brahmachari, there's a recording of Gurudev talking about him, and he had some type of, he worked for some company, and he always wanted to come and stay in the mott, but he had an aged mother, and so he continued with his work. He was not married, but he continued with his work, and in order to take care of his mother, and then after she passed away, then he came and came to stay permanently in the mott, and very exalted Vaishnava. What I remember Gurudev in particular mentioning about him was his quality of non-enviousness, that he was very non-envious Vaishnava. He was free from envy, very dear to Srila Sridhar Maharaj and our Gurudev. And this is the foundational quality of a Vaishnava. We were talking about this, I think yesterday, with someone. This is a foundational quality of the Vaishnava, to be free from envy. Right? This is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, right? The beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam. Paramo nirmatsaranam satam, right? That Veda Vyas is, he's compiled all the different texts of the Vedas and related to the Vedas, and but at the end of it all, he's giving his conclusion, right? And he's establishing from the beginning that he's only giving pure religion here. So the second verse of the 18,000 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, the very second verse is making this declaration: Dharma projita kaitavotra paramo nirmat saranam satam, that in this book I'm rejecting all types of cheating religion, right? Because normally religion is mixed with some type of bait, right? We need some, for most of us, most souls, it's difficult for us to appreciate the value of spiritual practice unless there's something in it for us, right? And so the Vedic texts, they speak about this dharma, artha, kama, moksha, right? Which helps to give some structure to our lives, right? And society, a wholesome structure where our human desires are regulated, kept within some bounds and directed towards some positive end. So dharma, artha, kama, moksha, right? The dharma, duty; artha, wealth; calm, sense pleasure; and moksha, liberation, right? So this is the idea that you're able to fulfill your material desires in this world in a regulated way. And then finally, to cultivate liberation, moksha. But Mahaprabhu, right, he came and said, no, actually, there is a fifth end to human life, pancham purushartha. And this is supreme. And this fifth goal of life, this is for those who are really seeking the welfare of their soul, right? Because this dharma, artha, kama, moksha is only relevant for those in the conditioned state, right? Those of us in the conditioned state, we want to enjoy in this world, or on the other side, we want to be free from this world, right? But what about one who is already liberated from this world? What about someone who's really just seeking the natural welfare of the soul, who has nothing to do with this world, who's not within the relativity of this world? Then what is the use of dharma, artha, kama, moksha to them, right? And so Srimad Bhagavatam is giving that fifth end of life, Krishna prema, divine love. What is the natural, wholesome, progressive life of the eternal soul, right? That is being given by Srimad Bhagavatam. But who can accept that? Paramo nirmat saranam satam, one who is free from envy. Why? Because envy is at the root of our apathy towards Krishna. Envy is at the root of our existence in this mundane world. Because what does envy mean? Envy means that we are not acknowledging Krishna, we're not acknowledging the Lord at the center. And then that's also extended, right, to everyone, that we don't want to acknowledge and appreciate the position of others and the qualities of others, right? We want to be in the center of our own world, right? That is what envy means, that we're unable to acknowledge the position, qualities, and glory of others, right? So envy is right at the root, right? And then on the other hand, one who enters into the culture of Vaishnavism, it's all about a celebration of the qualities of others, right? The glory of others, beginning with the Lord, right? The Lord is in the center. And then by extension, his devotees and all who are connected with him. And so the Vaishnavas, they're always in this, because they're free from envy, they are happy to celebrate the position of others. They're happy to acknowledge the fact that we are not at the center, But Bhoktadam, Yagyatapasam, Sarvaloka, Maheshram, Krishna's at the center, and everything is actually for him. What a happy thing, what a wonderful thing. So much better, than myself being at the center. Right. And so this is actually the real test, as to who is a Vaishnava, who is a real Vaishnava. And our Gurudev, he used to emphasize these qualities of humility, tolerance, and respect, right? Mahaprabhu discusses this in his Shikshashtakam verses. And our Gurudev, in one place, he explained that these qualities, they are the cure for envy, right? Practicing these qualities of humility, tolerance, and respect, they are the cure for envy and offensiveness, right? That yes, we may have this, right? We may have this, we may struggle with this nature of envy, this quality of envy, but we can try to treat that disease, right? We can try to treat that. And actually, last week, when I was in Soquel in California, Kalindi, it was Kalindi Didi, actually. She brought up a very nice question, about what is the difference between envy and jealousy, right? Very, very good question. What is the difference between envy and jealousy?
Yeah.
Divi Shakti's saying, yeah. And I heard our Gurudev talk about this, and I mean, a part of it is just to do with semantics, like how you're defining terms, because sometimes jealousy can be used synonymously with envy, right? But if we're going to be more specific about, different nuances of meaning, then we can make a distinction, right? And that envy means that we cannot tolerate that someone will be better than us. There's this in dark insidiousness to it, right? That we want to be number one, and we can't tolerate that anyone else is number one. And we can't tolerate that someone is better than us. And if they are, we'll be angry about it. And we may even be nasty about it. That is envy. But jealousy is more that you will there may be this spirit of competition, but friendly competition, right? That you are inspired to see how well someone is doing, and then you think, oh, let me also try, right? Like like in a game, right? Like, people speak about sportsmanship, right? And if you are defeated by a good player, in good sportsmanship, you'll be happy about that. You'll go and shake their hand. I'm happy to be defeated by you. It was a good game. You know, one of our devotees, his wife is a soccer referee, and I met her a week or two ago in California, and it was the World Cup going on. I'm sure 1,000,001 people have asked her, especially because she's a soccer referee. So I asked her also, who do you support? Who do you want to win? And and I was surprised. I was impressed by her answer. I liked her answer so much. She told me, she said, actually, I'm not supporting one team or another team. He said, I just enjoy the game. I just enjoy the game. And I love that. I love that. And that's the kind of spirit, that I'm talking about. So like you may have a competition with someone, but it's like this healthy competition where the skill of your opponent is inspiring you to do better, right? But you're not angry about that. If they win, if they show themselves to be better than you, you'll be happy about that. And our Gurudev, he was talking about this point once, and And he mentioned it was one poetry of Rabindranath Tagore. And I believe it was Rabindranath Tagore. It was some sweet Bengali poetry. And in that poem, he was saying, it was actually an expression of a flower. And it was saying how the flower was looking at the sun and saying, oh, you are you are shining so brightly and so effulgently. Let me also shine my light. Like the little small little flower is feeling like this kind of sweet competition with the sun, but happily, like, oh, the sun is shining so bright. I also want to shine. Let me also shine and show my light, So it can be a sweet thing, Oh, this person is doing this so well. Now I feel inspired. Let me try and do better than them. Let me see if I can do better than them. But if you can't do better than them, you'll still be happy, you know. You were motivated to try better, to try to fulfill your own potential, right? And Gurudev, he also was saying, and I believe it was that same talk, he was saying, if we are experiencing envy, he was saying, there's no need to be envious. And he was saying that, if we see that someone has some good quality, we can try to connect that. Sorry, a little distracted, someone else arriving here. We can try to collect that, right? If we see someone has some good quality, we can appreciate that. Think, oh, let me also try to have that, right? And he said, whatever we have, nobody can take from us. Nobody can take from us what we have. And if we see someone has something that we don't have, we can be inspired by that. And we can also try to develop that quality within ourselves and honor that, right? That's another thing. It's important that we honor the qualities that we see in others. We will benefit from that. I remember Goswami Maharaj, Bhakti Sudhir Goswami, he shared this incident, this exchange he had with our Gurudev, Srila Govinda Maharaj, that there was a letter he'd received, right? Goswami Maharaj was the one who, um, you know, brought Srila Sridhar Maharaj's teachings to the Western world, right? We're all very indebted to him for that. And so, quite early on, early 80s, he was connected with the Mat and our Gurudev and Param Gurudev, Param Guru Maharaj. And there was one letter exchange, he said. He received one letter from Srila Govinda Maharaj. And Srila Govinda Maharaj was praising him, very excessively, he felt. And our Gurudev could be very extreme in his praise, which is really just a demonstration of his own Vaishnavata, right? That Vaishnavata means one's quality of being a Vaishnava, the depth of one's Vaishnava quality. And this is one of the hallmarks of one who has real Vaishnavata, that they will glorify others, and sometimes to an unbelievable degree. And our Gurudev had that so extremely, and really sometimes it was unbelievable to me how much he could appreciate and glorify others, and very sincerely, not just flattery, but very sincerely, referring to the divine service, of different practitioners, and you're thinking, well, you know, I know what they did yesterday, they don't look that great to me, and I know they did this thing and that thing, and how can our Gurudev say he's doing divine service? It's there's one expression I heard, that if someone is human because there's always the but, right? Like if at least with myself, if I start to observe my own like speech patterns and stuff, like, you might praise someone, but then there's always a but, you know, like we're not there. There's a human tendency to not be comfortable with just like appreciating like one thing, like appreciating the beauty of someone and just appreciating that by itself. Like we always want to throw the but in. right? Like, oh, they're so amazing, they do this and that, but they also have this problem or that problem. Like we always want to throw that but in there. But our Gurudev didn't have that problem. He could just like in this kind of absolute way, just appreciate one beautiful aspect of someone and say something so extreme, like they're doing divine service, and there were so many expressions like that he would make and genuine. I've had some experiences of actually being shocked at the depth of his genuine affection, deep, genuine affection for, you know, for some of us lowly souls. So Goswami Maharaj, right? He received this one letter where Gurudev was praising him in a very extreme way. It was, I think he said something like, I've been serving my Guru Maharaj for 30 years, but you've done what I could never do. You've surpassed me, something like this. And so Goswami Maharaj, he wrote back, saying, oh, this is too much. How can you say something like this? This is too excessive. You can't praise me like this. But our Gurudev responded saying that actually, if I see that someone has received the mercy of Mahaprabhu, and if I also want to receive that mercy, then it is my duty to praise them. They've already received the mercy of Mahaprabhu, and I also want that mercy. Then I have to appreciate where I see that mercy has already been given. This is the Vaishnava view. And another thing too, is that, part of this envious spirit, it's based on this idea that there's not enough, right? Like there's a limited amount of room for people to be special. There's a limited number of places, for people to be special, right? There's this because we live in a world of limitation. One meaning of Maya is measurement, right? Sudarshan was mentioning last night, right? Vaikunta, the literal meaning of Vaikunta. Vaikunta is the name for the spiritual sky, right? But the literal meaning of Vaikunta is, Vai means without, and Kunta means like some limit. So no limit. That is the meaning of the spiritual world. You're dealing with infinity. We don't know what infinity means. I don't know what a billion means. What to speak of a trillion, what to speak of infinite. I don't know what the sky means, so we're used to like small numbers, we're used to there being limited places, limited resources. We live in a world of limitation and numbers and measurement and quantifiers and qualifiers and all these things. And so I feel that's also a part of what's in the background of the spirit of envy, right? That there's not enough, right? But when we're approaching the infinite, there's room for everyone, right? There's room for everyone to shine in their own unique way. There's room for Krishna to love everyone to an infinite degree. There's room for all of us to be wonderful in our own unique way. No. And we had some experience of that with our Gurudev, Srila Govinda Maharaj, because his presence was so powerful, so profound. And we experienced a glance from him was infinite. We were fulfilled. Just to look, I've met so many devotees, they had like one meeting with our Gurudev, and that was enough for them. I mean, what I mean by that is that they were so fulfilled by that, and they're still talking about that years later, remembering that one look or one word or one expression or one smile, right? Because he's from that infinite plane. There's this beautiful line in Chaitanya Charitamrita, right? Ek bindu jagat Dubai. means one drop can drown the whole world. One drop can drown the whole world. One part of the infinite is also infinite. Srila Sridhar Maharaj makes this point. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 minus 0 is 0. Right? Infinity and 0 have similar characteristics. So it is like that. One touch of that plane is enough to drown us. Right? One infinitesimal drop from that plane of infinity can fulfill us beyond our wildest dreams. So that is another thing, so as we progress in our Vaishnavata, in our Krishna consciousness, we will enter this more spacious plane, right? This spaciousness, where we can happily appreciate the glories of others and the qualities of others, because there's room for everyone. There's not just a small little stage where only one or two people can stand, but everyone can shine. Everyone can be wonderful. Everyone can be the best, right? Everyone can be the best. So what a wonderful thing. And I mentioned in the beginning of our meeting, right, how, there's this statement in Chaitanya Charitamrita, how like these devotees were the most confidential of the Lord. They were the most confidential devotees of the Lord. And you're like, what? Like only these 3.5 persons, right, are mentioned. But there are so many others, right? What about this person, that person? And then you can also look at different statements of Mahaprabhu, where he makes these kinds of extreme statements on many occasions, like, you are my most beloved, you are my most dear. He's making expressions like this to a number of devotees, because it is true, right? There is space for everyone to have a uniquely best relationship and connection with Mahaprabhu. It's not, we don't need to be limited by mathematics, right? That's what I mean to say. And we can live a very happy and peaceful life, if we embrace this approach. It's this like strange kind of effect of the layer of the false ego, right? This it's like a mask that's covering us, and it causes us to make everything about us, right? We there's this, there's a tendency to kind of see everything in terms of how it relates to us. Like we're not able to just appreciate something on its own terms, on its own, standing on its own. But it's like everything comes back to us. This is the ahankar. There's one explanation Srila Sridhar Maharaj gives, which is so wonderful, saying, he says that the ahankar, the ego, it is like a machine. He says it is a machine that is receiving and transmitting false information. Receiving and transmitting false information. Because it's viewing the environment through this artificial lens of our own self-interest. So everything's being filtered through this, false, everything's passing through this false filter, false lens, just like, nowadays they have these funny filters you can put on, right? That distort your appearance. And so we have these like filters on which are distorting our view of reality, and the tendency of the ahankar is to see everything through the lens of our own interest, right? And not only is that a false lens, but it causes us misery, right? Causes us unhappiness. But when we are free from that lens, from that false filter, we'll be able to appreciate things on their own terms, right? It doesn't always have to come back to us. And we won't feel the need also to limit, right? To limit others and their qualities, right? But we will wish the absolute best for everyone. Want everyone to be better than ourselves. That is the sincere feeling of the Vaishnava. Srila Swami Maharaj Prabhupada, he has one comment like that in one of his purports, saying that Srila Prabhupada said that when somebody new comes to Vrindavan, then Radharani will go to Krishna and say, "Oh, Krishna, please accept them. They are so much better than myself. Please accept them. They are better than myself." This is the mood of the Vaishnava, that they sincerely want everyone to be better than themselves. So it's really something to think about, isn't it? How much we have that within us, right? How much we have that quality within us. And this is a real mark of progress, actually. It's a question that comes up again and again, like, how do I know if I'm making progress? Or yesterday somebody asked me, how do I know if I've received mercy? How do I know if I have mercy in my life? And this is one of the markers, right? How much are we still holding this quality of envy, right? How much are we able to appreciate others, right? How much are we able to glorify others? This is a symptom of a generous heart, right? This is a generous heart that can, hold space for everyone in a sense, that can glorify everyone, appreciate everyone. That is one of the markers we can look out for. Well, I don't know if anyone wants.
This is really amazing. This is really helping me so much to shift into a different mood. Like what you just offer. Thank you so much, Vishakhadidi. Like this whole, we started with just what's the difference between envy and jealousy, and then part of my head was like, it's blah blah, and then my heart was like, I don't actually know, and then it was such an adjustment, and the what really blows my mind is this. That we are stuck in measure. Oops.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what happened here. I'm like, I wanted to turn on my camera and then it's doing it the other way. Anyway. Um and I think that's exactly our trap here, that Maya apparently is measurement, and we think we can only be lovable if we are good enough, so therefore the ego makes other people less good than me, and it just keeps the heart closed. This whole, one hour on social media will really make the heart shrivel. Because it is feeding all that enviousness and jealousy, and yeah, and that Vaikuntha is without measure, and that we don't know what measure is. It adjusted me in a way, like I felt my heart was tightening, and then my head let go of that I know anything, and suddenly my heart was relaxing. So this is what I wanted to give you as a feedback. This is actually really such an amazing class. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for sharing that, Gangalila. That's beautiful to hear. Yeah, I feel so fortunate I could have that experience with our Gurudev, because I mean I've shared this story before, but I remember when I first went to live in India, there was a period I went through when I struggled with, seeing, there were others who, were more, close with our Gurudev, would interact with him in a more direct and close way. And I struggle with some envy, about that. Like, oh, I want to be right next to our Gurudev, and all these things. But there was a huge shift that took place. And I remember I don't know if there was like one event, but there was just this shift that take place where I started to feel my own relationship with our Gurudev and feeling his own affection. And yes, perhaps we weren't interacting directly so much, but there was more of a clear exchange, in a more subtle way. But I felt the development of our own connection, our own relationship, and once I felt that, I felt so satisfied in that, you know, to the point where I didn't care anymore. Oh, this person gets to talk with him more, and this person gets to do direct seva with him more. But once I started to feel my own connection with him, I felt this is infinite, and I realized that there's enough of him for everyone. There's enough of him for everyone. And so that gave me, I feel like, some glimpse of what it means to live in infinity. Because with him, it really was like that, you were happy if you got to, clean his room, when he wasn't even there, and you were happy if he glanced in your direction, because everything that came from him was infinite. It was so full, right? That's another thing. Om Purnamada Purnamidam, right? Ishopanishad. At every point, the Lord is full. And those who come from that plane, they are also full. There's this feeling of fullness and completeness. And so that, obviously I'm human. I still struggle with envy and all these things and limitation and so on. But I remember that experience I had with our guru, and I feel blessed that I could have some tangible experience of what it means to live in infinity. I was sharing with one devotee here yesterday, I have this whole story about turning on the light switch for our guru, like the most ordinary thing, we turn light switches on and off all day long, every day, and every week and every month and every year. I mean, it's like the most inconsequential thing, but I had one experience of our guru asking me to turn on a light switch, and it was like, if I had to make a list of like the top 10 events in my life, like that would be up there, because it's such an insignificant thing, but because everything in connection with him had such depth and profundity, it was so fulfilling. It was so satisfying to be able to turn on a light switch for him. Everything around him was like that. So that is the nature of infinity. The most insignificant things, they take on so much meaning. A few weeks ago, I had this discussion with some friends, and Ananda Krishna Prabhu and his sister, they were there, and there was this discussion, about, like AI is like the big topic, the hot topic, right? And so, one person made this point, that, the good thing about it, like from their perspective, was that, if we have like kind of like the more boring, labor-intensive jobs covered by AI, then that leaves people free, right, to do something more creative, more interesting, more fulfilling with their lives. And and on one level, I can appreciate the truth of that, but then later on, I was thinking about it, and I said, actually, what's really lacking in this world is love, right? And what I mean by that is that when we are living in a state of love and connection, even the most menial things become so fulfilling, right? So what I mean by that ultimately is that, when we are connected with the Lord, right, and the Vaishnavas, when we're feeling connection of this infinite plane of love, every tiny little thing becomes so fulfilling, you know. And we may even have experience in this world, like when you love someone, you're happy to do the smallest thing for them. And the smallest things take on the biggest significance. The way that you made somebody's chai and Akshi Didi Dandavat. We're just wrapping up our meeting. And Nakshi Didi here. So look, so Nakshi Didi's brought a flower. How happy she is to offer that flower to the Lord.
Whoever that is, Dandavat, Dandavat. Good to see you all.
Dandavats.
Dandavat.
So, like picking a flower, that's like the most ordinary thing. And giving a flower to someone is the most ordinary thing. But because there's a connection of love, there's like infinite significance behind it. And I'm sure Nakshi was thinking all morning about what flowers she's going to pick and then what time she's, how she's going to come and offer them to Mahaprabhu and to our gurus, and how much joy and what huge smile on her face, offering a little flower. It's free flower, right? Maybe she stole it from a neighbor's garden. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. So this is the thing, right? When we feel our connection with the infinite, the smallest things, they take on so much significance, you know. So to live in love, that is our real need. Labor of love, right? We have this expression, labor of love. And sacrifice takes on such a wonderful position. Sacrifice becomes an opportunity to give ourselves in love, right? And I just said, before we close, there's this wonderful quote, many of you know, it's a quote of Srila Saraswati Thakur, he speaks about the all love. Let me find it. It's one of my favorite all-time quotes. Let me see. I had it saved somewhere, but just seeing if Google can help me find it. No, Google can't handle this one. I saved it on GaudiyaDarshan.com. Here it is, Bhakti Siddhanta Vani. This is really amazing quote. Where is it? Here it is. Here it is. This is a quote from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. The transcendental mediator, or Sri Gurudev, is a loving agent of the all love, capital, all love. The transcendental mediator, or Sri Gurudev, is a loving agent of the all love, and so will be kind to us who are seeking for a tie of love with the all love. This embodiment of love will gradually lead our loving mood to that one who is the fountainhead and mainstay of all aspects of eternal love. This messenger is the pioneer leader of love, the courier of the all love, the establisher of all relations of divine love, and the regulator and modifier of all our non-loving principles. I'm going to read it one more time. The transcendental mediator, or Sri Gurudev, is a loving agent of the all love, and so will be kind to us who are seeking for a tie of love with the all love. This embodiment of love will gradually lead our loving mood to that one who is the fountainhead and mainstay of all aspects of eternal love. This messenger is the pioneer leader of love, the courier of the all love, the establisher of all relations of divine love, and the regulator and modifier of all our non-loving principles. How wonderful. So there are loving principles and non-loving principles. And Guru, Sri Guru, is the modifier of our non-loving principles. Or clearing, right? If we have non-loving principles, Guru will clear that, right? From us. So on there's so many beautiful quotes from Sridhar Maharaj, right? Only love can fulfill us. That is our real need. And that is ultimately the cure for envy, right? When we feel a touch of that all love, that connection with the all love, our envy will be free. We will be freed from that envy because we realize we are in connection of the infinite, right? And in our envious attitude, we're trying to hold on to our conception of self-interest, right? Oh, I have to protect myself. I'm supposed to be at the center of the universe, right? We've all got this like chip on our shoulders, and we're like afraid and threatened when the environment doesn't agree with that, right? Is the environment is threatening that conception we have of being at the center. But the wonderful thing is that if we can let go of that and acknowledge a higher center, we'll actually be fulfilled beyond our wildest dreams, right? And our conception of self will actually, we will be so exalted by that, right? By stepping into the light of another center, right? Entering into the orbit of the Krishna sun, right? We will all become satellites of that. We will all become exalted and enlightened by that central light, right? But it is an act of courage, right? To be able to let go of our little artificial world, right? To step out of the dungeon with our little lamp and step out into the bright sunshine under the sky, right? Because we're stepping into what's unknown. This is all we've known since time immemorial. So it is an act of courage to step out of that little dungeon, walk into the sunlight, right? But so much encouragement is there from our divine guardians and advices of the highest order. Jai Shri Gurudev. Well, maybe we'll close there. Any last comments or questions from anybody? Should we end there? Really good to see you all. What do you think, Satya Govinda? Does it sound good? You want to sign up?
It sounds good.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Yeah.
All right. Your sister's there too.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, wish you all a happy rest of your day. My dandavats to you all and see you next time. Jai Shri Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj ki Jai. All the assembled devotees ki Jai. Hari Nam Sankirtan ki Jai. Jai Gaur Premanande. Jai Shri Gurudev.